it's getting bad again. Can't sleep before 12 a.m. and I don't know what to do. Playlist of the same 4 songs. There has to be something wrong, and to be honest, I don't have a clue. Hey, how are you? Are you doing okay? Oh, I'm not sure what to say. Emotional purgatory, oh, it's coming up for me. I need someone to drag me back to life. Feels like my light is dim, but my feelings can't get in. It's like I'm outside of my mind. My body and my soul are taking a toll, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Hey, how are you? Are you doing okay? Oh, I'm not sure what to say. Emotional purgatory, oh, it's coming up for me. I need someone to drag me back to life. In the recording it goes like, ooh, yeah. Ooh. Someone in the mirror, stranger it must be. Unrecognizable, my brain's outside of me. What's it like to not be numb? Someone answer, please, anyone. Hey, how are you? Are you doing okay? Oh, I'm not sure what to say. Emotional purgatory is coming over for me. I need someone to drag me back to life. Another go with therapy. Come on in, please take a seat. I've given it a try. I need something not prescribed. I want a brand new mind. Thank you. This next one I wrote probably like less than a month ago, so not completely finished, but we'll see how it goes. We had a talk, and I had a thought. Maybe you all that I need. The teasing mistakes, I didn't care when we were sitting there, just you and me. Open it up to me, tell me your skies, but you say it just makes us who we are. Arm around my shoulder, it'll help us when we're older, but for now I'm cool sitting next to you. Thought that I was broken, maybe I still am. What I know was meeting you wasn't part of my plan. Reading into things, 'cause you've been on my mind. Things are never simple. With you I don't have to hide. Open it up to me, tell me your skies, but you say it just makes us who we are. Arm us when we're older, but for now I'm cool. Sitting next to you, meeting your eyes gives me butterflies. Don't make me write a song about you. I did though, 'cause I know that you're there and we'd be a good pair, whatever that means. You seem so nonchalant, can't tell if you care. Then you say one thing to me and I can't get it out my head. Open it up to me, tell me your scars, but you say it just makes us who we are. Arm around my shoulder, it'll help us when we're older, but for now I'm cool. Sitting next to you. Thank you. So this next song was, I graduated high school last year and I did English Lit, which is like the writer's kind of English. And so one of the assignments is you have to transform a text into another type. And so I picked the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. I'm sure you are familiar with it. And I turned it into a song called Mean Reds. And I think it made my teacher cry. So sorry, Linda, but... I put off reading your letter. I thought that I knew far better. I knew what it would say. He knew a girl that was distant. You saw me so very different. I know who I would choose. But people don't belong to people. Let go, I'm running away. Mean reds on the blues. Do other people feel that too? I've been alone for a very long time. I think I'll be that way for the rest of my life. 'Cause mean reds are just not the blues. I know it's a bad habit, changing myself. How else could I have it? How do I know I can trust you? I hide at the first sign of conflict. I know the pain people inflict. What else am I supposed to do? But people don't belong to people. Let go, I'm running away. Mean reds on the blues. Do other people feel that too? I've been alone for a very long time. Think I'll be that way for the rest of my life. 'Cause mean reds, they're just not the blues. Why do you care about me? Why do you still want me in your life? I've proven over and over and over again, over and over and over again, over and over and over again. This town's finished for me. Why can't you see I'm not the dangerously innocent one you set me out to be? You saw the real soul soul inside me, standing in the rain there you were beside me. Can't figure out why I've still got you, but I'll stay right by your side. We'll write the story the rest of our lives. Maybe being alone's not what I wanna do. Maybe people do belong to people. I don't wanna run away. Mean reds on the blues, but I know you'll feel the same way too. We'll be together for a very long time. I really hope for the rest of our lives. I got an A on the assignment. And I've got one more song for you before we start, if that's okay. And I released this one in September of this year. And it's about one of my best mates. And I was literally working at Coles and I'm like, oh no, I'm into him again. Damn, something flipped. Damn. So this is Flipped. Lately I found you sneaking into my head. Thought that I was over it, that we're better off as friends. I wasn't over it. Tell me why I can't stop thinking about you. Try and I try, but it makes me feel that it's true. Fatal flaw of mine is reading too much into these things. I feel and I fall too hard. It wasn't even a flame. I don't know what to do to stop it from happening, but I don't know if I'd want it to. Something flipped inside my brain now. It's just not quite the same. You're in my thoughts and in my life, and I would hate for you to go. We're perfect in theory, but reality is so different. I wouldn't forgive myself if I lost you in an instant. By showing how I feel for you, though I wish I could. Oh, I know it wouldn't turn out good. You show me music and I listen to all of the songs. Means so much to me. I learn the lyrics and I'll sing along. What if we switched the roles and I wrote a song for you? Would you add it to your playlist and give it a 5-star review? Something flipped inside my brain now. It's just not quite the same. You're in my thoughts and in my life, and I would hate for you to go. But what can I do about it? But force myself to hide and not admit that I think you're great. I think that we could be great. Funky guitar solo in this bit. I was going to impersonate it, but that'd just sound really weird, I think. Something flipped inside my brain now. It's just not quite the same. You're in my quite the same. You're in my thoughts and in my life, and I would hate for you to go. Try to read my horoscope, but I don't know what it means. That's a lie, I'm a Capricorn. What I do know is for you, oh, I'm pretty keen. So I hope this song gets stuck in your head. So I hope this song gets stuck in your head. Oh, I hope this song gets stuck in your head. I just bit the mic. And then if there's something for you too. Thank you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you, Bianca, for that amazing original music. I must say that last song hit very close to home. Welcome to the Voiceworks launch night. Thank you for joining us here tonight to celebrate their 128th issue, Grain. Yep, I already said that. Hi, I'm Rowan, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Devon, and I use they, them pronouns. We are your NB MCs for tonight. NB stands for non-binary. I don't know what MC stands for.
A few housekeeping things. Tonight's event is being live streamed, so phones on silent, please. We'll have a 20-minute break for a drink and a chat later. The women's toilets are down the ramp to the left, and the men's toilets are by the concession stand. We noticed that there are no non-binary toilets, but that's okay, we don't have bladders.
Only strong moral compasses.
And gaydars. In the event of an emergency, run.
Before we begin tonight, acknowledgement of country.
Nyangi Nyangawat, and we are the first peoples of the River Murray and Mel. Our laws and customs crisscross this country, and we acknowledge our custodians of our lands and waters. Nawai, Nangaruku, Nyinte, Nrolti, Naket, Nawang. We also give respect to the Irawaran people's land that we are present on. We are grateful in continuing to acknowledge and share the recognition of our people. Thank you.
We'll now invite Voiceworks editor Zoe to say a few words, followed by Writers SA statewide regional manager Alicia.
Thanks for that lovely introduction. I guess I'd start by saying I feel very lucky and special to be able to launch this issue in the Riverland. It felt... Pardon?
Oh, I'm so sorry, I have to.
Oh, sorry. It felt really surreal driving here through the floodwaters and to be, I guess, launching an issue of a youth literary journal in the middle of all this place. But it feels like such an amazing place. And I think one thing that I do feel about Voiceworks, as much as I love it, is that we don't get out into the regions enough. Like, we don't engage enough with writers and artists who we know are there, who are creating amazing work in the region. So I feel really lucky to be doing this here. When people have asked me what Voiceworks is over the past couple of days, I've noticed I've developed a bit of an elevator pitch. I start off by saying we publish and pay writers under 25, but really I don't think that says what we actually do. It says what the organisation does, but what it doesn't tell you is what those writers and artists go on to do. Since becoming editor, I've been able to look through all the past issues of Voiceworks over the past 40 years that Express has been around. I've seen alumni such as Christos Tsiolkas, Maxine Beniba Clark, Ellen Van Neerven, Anna Crane. Some of my favourite writers first got their start in Voiceworks. But we're also one of the few magazines in Australia, if any, that gives feedback on all unsuccessful submissions pitched to us. We read all our submissions 3 times over in the editorial committee, where Helen is a part of. and which I used to be on before editor. I first joined the Voiceworks editorial committee while I was living in Western Victoria in a really small town called Hawkesdale, where I was working on a dairy farm. So I would get up at 4 a.m. and milk cows from 4:30 to 10, and then I would sleep, and then from 12:30 to 6. During lockdowns and isolation, being on EdCom was pretty much the one thing that I looked forward to every week, when we would read submissions from other young people all around the country. We would read poems, stories, essays, artwork, look at cartoons, comics, and photography, and just think about all these pieces from different people's lives coming through the portal, coming into Google Drive in front of us while we were in isolation and lockdowns was an amazing privilege. Voiceworks was the first place that I was ever paid for my writing. I'd written an essay about music and schizophrenia, about losing a parent, a piece that was and remains really close to my heart. The editorial process, I was lucky because it was so incredibly caring and collaborative. The first time I submitted a piece, it had actually been knocked back, but I got some of the most helpful feedback that I've ever had gotten on my writing, and this feedback gave me the encouragement to change it all and resubmit. I still remember the advice and feedback that I got from Voiceworks. We offer industry-level feedback on all unsuccessful submissions. And I think another thing that makes us different, if you'll permit me to rant more about how much I love Voiceworks, is that unlike other publications where they're more likely to accept work that's more polished or along the journey, we're looking for work that is original, that has a concept that is interesting, and we want to see it polished and developed up to a point through collaboration where it can be published on the page. So the editorial process is extremely rigorous and extremely collaborative. To bring me to the end of my spiel, Voiceworks is open for submissions to our next issue, Static, until Sunday midnight. So if you know any young writers or artists in your lives who might be interested in being published or getting feedback, please tell them to submit. And submit to us. Not looking at any of you in particular. The other thing is, if you can, request Voiceworks at your local library, because that's a great way to make Voiceworks accessible to people all across the country, and we love our libraries, so we are very grateful for them. It's the first place that I ever borrowed a copy of Voiceworks as well. Thank you to the organisers, thank you to the readers, thank you all who have come out tonight to Renmark. It is my pleasure now to welcome Writer's Essay. Thank you.
And of course, we are a bit fancy, but we're also here in an intimate conversation. So you're allowed to laugh. You're allowed to make some comments if you want. No heckling, please. It's not a comedy gig. Tics are excused because, of course, we can't help those. And what we want is a space where everyone can be their fullest self, whatever that means. It's been a really long year. My brain has turned to absolute mush, so I will be reading from notes. Which may or may not make sense because I wrote them at the table as you were entering. So, the title of my notes are Thoughts and Shit. So, after hearing a little bit about what Voiceworks actually is and what it does, and before we kick off into hearing from some of the readers from this edition, and officially launching Grain, I just wanted to give a little bit of background and some context to why we are launching this edition of Voiceworks here in Renmark at the Chaffey Theatre, on the stage with all of you in person and those of you tuning in from the live stream. So like most answers, the answer to that question, why are we here launching Voiceworks, is both simple and complex. But I am going to try and stick to a short version. Those of you that know me will know that I am a chronic over-explainer. I got that from my dad. It's my vibe, just stay with me. So, since last year, I've been part of the team at Writer's Essay, with the majority of my time dedicated to No Limits, a very special project to nurture, inspire and upskill young regional writers. Through this project, we've had regional coordinators based in Port Lincoln, Eliza, who's here with us tonight, Matt Gambier, me, and also Kathy, who's no longer with the organisation, and right here in the Riverland, Kirsty van der Giesen, who's also here tonight, of course. And through that program, No Limits, we've been organising workshops, commissions, events and special projects dedicated to young regional writers in those 3 communities. So I was a young regional writer once. But it took me a really long time, a really, really long time, to find the courage, the support and the networks to actually call myself a writer and to claim that. And by the time that I heard about Voiceworks, I was too old and I couldn't submit any of my writing to Voiceworks, so I'll never have the honour of being published by Voiceworks. And that's a little bit of why we're here. Because the work to connect, to champion, to advocate and to create pathways for the next generation of young regional writers is work that I think belongs to all of us. To make sure that no young creative person is starved at their potential due to distance or location. So Jessie Oliver, who was the previous general manager of Express Media, the organisation behind Voiceworks, Jessie and I had a conversation about exactly this idea late last year, about how we could work together to help make sure that South Australian young writers and young regional writers from across the country could know more about Voiceworks and have the courage and the support to submit their beautiful work. So from that conversation, we schemed lots of things, and you can never do all the things you scheme. But what we did decide together is that we would host the first ever South Australian launch of Voiceworks in the regions this December, this year, with an issue that was kind of actively prioritising and trying to seek South Australian submissions. So we chose Renmark here at the Chaffey Theatre out of the 3 locations that No Limits worked in, quite simply because logistically it was cheaper and easier and more central to access than the other 2 regions. Blunt but true, that's why we came to Renmark. But I'm not unhappy that we're gathered here in the Riverland, because the Riverland is my heartland, my home. It's where I was born, just down the road in Waikerie. And it's a community that I love fiercely for all its flaws and all its possibility. We didn't know, of course, last year also that we would be in flood. We're in a flood situation here in the Riverland. And so I'm also not unhappy that that decision to be here in the Riverland hosting the launch of Voiceworks means that we've also brought our guests here to put money into accommodation and to food at a time when the river is rising, and all that that's going to mean for our community in the coming months. So those watching at home, please come and visit, take some beautiful photos of the river, spend some money. Those already here, please have a very big lunch somewhere tomorrow and stop in at all the tourist centres and buy lots of beautiful products. But the reason to be here at all, whatever location we've chosen for whatever reason, the reason to be here at all, launching Voiceworks in regional SA, is because visibility matters. It's really, really hard to be what you can't see. And those words have been said over and over again in different contexts, and it's because they're true. It's really hard to be what you can't see a pathway towards. So in this edition of Voiceworks in Grain, there are a number of South Australian writers and artists. None of them are from the Riverland. And none of them, unfortunately, are from regional South Australia either. And that's because our work is not done. It's just starting. Through this conversation, through being here tonight on the stage of the Chaffey Theatre or live streaming from home, through the Writers SA and the Voiceworks teams meeting today with each other, with other stakeholders like Riverland Youth Theatre and Country Arts SA, through the readers that are here tonight, connecting with each other and hopefully connecting with some of our local young creatives, and most of all through the local young people we have sharing their skills tonight. So Bianca, who we heard earlier on guitar and we'll hear again later, Devon and Ro as our MCs, and Devon, Ro and Levi, who are going to be responding to tonight's event as creative response crew. And of course Kirsty, who lives right here in the Riverland, who's been the Writers SA Riverland coordinator and done most of the legwork to put this event together. This is part of the conversation, and we can all continue it. So thank you for being here tonight to be part of that conversation. I want to ask you to make that conversation really loud, really, really loud, so that we can make our own kind of flood. Let's make sure that future Voiceworks submissions are absolutely flooded with regional voices. Let's make sure that this generation don't have to wait to be heard. Thank you and enjoy the readings.
Thank you. First up, we have Helen, a 23-year-old journalist and writer living and working on Kaurna land. Her work navigates identity and diversity with a pop culture flair. She'll be reading from her editorial, Counting Cards.
Thank you all. I'm very excited to be here in Renmark tonight. In the past year, I've given a lot of thought to the intention of my actions. How much I'm doing because I think I'm supposed to, and what choices I'm making because I want to. I've started thinking about who my actions serve. Do they serve me, or do they serve an idea of myself that's been ingrained from various influences of my adolescence? My mum likes to tell the story of the Year 11 teacher that took long service leave after teaching me for a semester. A sheer coincidence, I assure you. I remember Mrs. M as having short, choppy hair and even shorter patience. She wore loose-fitting floral clothing with large sleeves that flopped from student to student as she scratched out bits of our English essays with her wicked red pen. It became an anecdote in our household that I had scared off this tenured teacher with my many questions and my insistence to know how I could improve my research project. But hey, it worked. I jumped from a C to an A grade by the end of the term. I'd almost forgotten the joke until Mum raised it with my partner. With a smile, she delivered the tale as it exemplified my perfectionism and persistence as something to be feared. To his credit, my partner describes me as determined without the same inflection as my mum. She calls me a very determined child. But we all have a giggle at the idea of my 17-year-old self, a self-conscious schoolgirl standing out in a sea of red plaid skirts for the most embarrassing trait a teen can exhibit, verbalising that I cared. I'm still learning to discern the things that are worth caring about from those that aren't. In my early adulthood, I've begun collecting jobs like Pokemon cards. Contract work, freelancing, casual part-time employment, multiple positions, most of which overlap, and all of which allow me to flex my creative and organisational muscles. The Pokemon deck I've assembled so far include defences like super calendar coordination, and attacks like passive-aggressive corporate emailing. I put a lot of care into the cards. I do my best to avoid torn edges by packing them away in neat plastic sleeves. They sit on the shelf until they're needed, no longer being lugged around and taking up spaces they don't belong in. With age, I've found eagerness is something I've toned down in certain environments. As a writer, I've found myself paralysed by the need to be better right away, typing and deleting and retyping sentence by sentence, trying to self-edit in the moment and improve immediately. I want my work to jump from where it is to where it wants to be in seconds. While it's well-intentioned, all this really results in is work taking longer than it needs to, and I get a headache from manically typing. Instead, take a breath, file it away for now, and relinquish control to an editor's fresh eyes. Much like my Pokemon deck, my work will evolve in its own time. Since 17, I've certainly learnt a lot about writing and editing. I've held on to that persistence, but balance it with restraint. Finding balance often comes down to reading the room, which, granted, is harder to do over email and virtual meetings, which we've had so many of over the past few years. I've learnt not to fear the wicked red pen, but embrace it. As a writer, I embrace it in the sense that I don't feel the need to dispute every change. I recently started editing non-fiction for Voiceworks, and I was immediately struck by the vulnerability that was offered in our submissions. It reminds me why, at 17, I fell in love with the idea of being a writer. As a teenager, you feel everything so deeply, and that can seem like the worst thing in the world at the time. Knowing that your editor understands those big feelings makes the wicked red pen we yield less threatening. Editing for Voiceworks was a choice that I made at a time when I was still lugging my Pokemon deck around everywhere with me. Cards poking and prodding at my social life and falling over themselves to remind me of workloads and deadlines. It's a choice serving me with reminders of caretaking at every step. With my cards neatly filed away, I can flip to the ones I need when needed. It's given me the opportunity to pause and think about which sentences need extra support and those that deserve a strike through. We edit best with an open hand, showing our cards and remaining open to the possibilities that come with vulnerability.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for evolving like a Pokemon. Next, we have Sudashri, who is a lover of all things creative, especially writing, sewing, and painting. She will be reading from her essay, Ableism at Work.
I always dread when someone asks me what I do. My response is usually delivered with an awkward smile. I'm not doing anything now. I'm a writer, I guess. Like 34.1% of autistic people, I'm unemployed. I spend my days writing, painting, attending a local art class, and helping with household chores. Since these aren't traditional forms of labour, I usually default to nothing much when asked about work, fearing that other people will think that my art is not important. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the rate of unemployment for autistic people is 3 times higher than other disabled people and 8 times higher than non-disabled people. Traditional forms of employment have always felt unattainable to me due to my sensory sensitivities and social struggles, but I believe that inaccessible workplaces have been a contributing factor. There are some adjustments that I understand are impossible to make. You can't make a jackhammer any quieter. However, there are adjustments that are possible, some of which that are fairly easy to implement. Amaze, Victoria's Autism Association, suggests measures such as having softer lighting, having clear expectations, direct feedback, and allowing working from home where possible, which the past few years have shown is possible in many circumstances. My experiences at university studying geology have shown me that often people aren't willing to implement accessibility measures simply because it's inconvenient for them. While I was able to obtain a disability access plan, it didn't reflect my needs. On the paperwork, it stated that I was allowed extensions and to miss oral presentations, something I did not require. If I wanted the lecturer to understand that I needed breaks in class if I became overwhelmed, or that I struggled to ask questions, I would have to talk to each lecturer individually, even though I was already emailing them a document that was supposed to address access for me. The process of repeating myself and constantly justifying my needs was exhausting and used precious energy I could have spent on my coursework. Often I tried to power through the courses without the adjustments, leading to days of sobbing as I tried to study for tests, too exhausted to manage my emotions while navigating a system of barriers. In recent years, I've seen ads about programs set up to get autistic people into the workplace, such as Exceptional, Specialistering, and the Australian Government's Aurora Neurodiversity Program. All 3 of these programs recruit autistic people either for large companies such as IBM and Westpac, or for government departments. These programs advertise some accessible aspects, such as not requiring a job interview. It seems to me like most of these programs are aimed at one particular kind of autistic person, someone who is skilled at IT or finance. While I think that it is great that these opportunities exist and will help people, there are still improvements that need to be made. What about those such as myself, someone who does not have an interest in IT and who would struggle to get to work in an office due to my sensory differences? Or those of us who are unable to speak or have an intellectual disability? There are positive and accessible aspects to these programs, but they need to be expanded into other industries. There are autistic people who are talented teachers, artists, or gardeners, and they all deserve to have assistance getting employment too. There are many different kinds of work that autistic people are engaged in. At the moment, through a mentoring program, I'm exploring starting my own small business selling my artwork as cards. Once a fortnight, I meet with a business mentor who is guiding me through the process of setting up my business, such as creating a website and how to contact potential printers for quotes. For me, it feels like I am choosing my battles. I will have to manage my own time and money, but I will be able to work in an environment accessible to me and at hours I feel the best. While not for everyone, I think that it would be beneficial for more autistic people to have the opportunity to work for themselves. It is not something I had ever considered until recently, but with the right supports in place, I am hoping to create the job that I have always wanted. There are times in my life where, as much as I wanted to, work would not have been an option, as I could barely get changed and struggled to leave the house. At those times in my life, I still deserve to feel like I'm contributing to society. I've found that treating my housework, not just as a chore, but as a job, has been important. Just because this kind of work is unpaid doesn't make it worthless. I know my family really appreciate the dishes being clean or being gifted a painting I made just for them. My domestic work should be valued for the joy and comfort it brings to an environment despite being unpaid. I feel deeply uncomfortable when the positives about being autistic, such as our eye for detail or our deep interests, are shown to be something to be commodified. Writer Clem Bastow warns of the dangers of amplifying the special interests of autistic people to suit the neurotypical ideas of contributing to the working culture. Money shouldn't be presented as the only worthy outcome of domestic work, when elements like love and creativity are just as valuable. Even with a workplace that meets your interests and offers accommodations, paid employment is not necessarily suitable for everyone. This is why it's important that we show people unable to work in a traditional sense that they are still valued members of society, regardless of how productive we are able to be. Workplace accessibility needs to go further than wheelchair ramps. People need to recognise that autistic people have so much to offer, but we need supports in place to make it fair for us. Improving employment outcomes benefits not just autistic people, but the communities around them. I recently explained to a friend in my art class how I don't have a job. She pointed to the painting I was working on and told me that my art is my job. Even though I'm not paid, she explained, that my art is valuable, important and valuable. I feel like I'm contributing to my community, which is what matters most to me.
That was amazing. We'll be taking a short break now. So go pee, go snack. We'll be back in 20 minutes to hear from our next readers. Now is a great time to grab a copy of Voiceworks.
Is everyone all ready to get going again? Yep. Our next reading is from the fiction section. Megan is a writer, bookseller, and very amateur tap dancer. Yeah, we've got it, yeah. She'll be reading from her short story, Tonsil Jar. Megan can't be here with us tonight thanks to the spicy flu, but she sent us a video for us to enjoy.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm coming to you from Ghana country and I'll be reading an opening extract from my story Tonsil Jar. The full story will be in this month's edition of Voiceworks. I'm sad to be missing the launch, but I hope it's a great evening. Here's Tonsil Jar. As Sophie poured the milk into her morning muesli, she thought about Mrs. Janetsky, who was in the fridge at the moment, the other fridge. Last night, Sophie's dad had told her how Mrs. Janetsky's son had found his mother's tonsils in a dusty jar while cleaning out her house. He'd asked if they could bury the tonsils with her because no one else in the family wanted them, not even her nephew, Jack, who collected Ripley's Believe It or Not annuals. Sophie's dad hurried past her to the door. "I'll be out all day," he said, swiping his keys off the counter. "If there's a knock on the door this morning, that'll be Mrs. Janetsky's son with the tonsils." Sophie chewed on a mouthful of cereal. She recalled reading that Prince Charles, in his boyhood, had carried around his own tonsils in a jar of preservative. Swallowing, she said, "I'm heading to the city today, remember?" "Right," her dad paused in the open doorway, letting cool air blow inside. "Guess I'll just tell him to put it in the letterbox." Closer to town, at the university, the wind was picking up as Esther steeled herself for a cold, inadequate shower. They still hadn't fixed the hot water in the student halls. Standing alone in the drafty bathroom, she pulled her robe tighter and decided she couldn't face it. She shuffled back to her room and grabbed last night's dress off the floor. Shivering, she put it on, left her room, and walked to the bus stop. The bus ride was a short one, and when Esther arrived at the festival grounds, the gates weren't open yet. She found a patch of grass to sit on and listened to the approach, then the retreat of the street cleaning machine. Her forehead itched under her newly cut fringe. She scratched it and examined traces of last night's foundation under her fingernails. She'd left the pub early because there wasn't anyone to talk to. The other drama students had already formed little groups, and she didn't seem to fit into any of them. Even her black and white vintage dress hadn't earned her any compliments. Esther changed positions on the grass so that her leg wouldn't fall asleep, and checked again to see if the gates had opened. She'd bought her ticket months ago, back when she was still living at home and planning her escape to the city, on the assumption that by now she'd have met people to go with. Sophie was almost ready to go when Jess called. She looked at Jess's face lighting up the screen, and she had a feeling she knew what Jess was calling to say. "Yeah? Soph, shit, I'm so sorry, but I went to bed last night with the worst headache. I took 2 ibuprofen, but I only got like 5 hours and 47 minutes sleep. I woke up and was like, no, I'm just going to have to ring you. I don't think I'm in any state to drive anywhere." Sophie stared down at her bag. "I could drive?" "Sorry, I already gave my ticket to my cousin. You know James, maybe you could go with him?" Jess knew that she wouldn't do that. "It's fine, I'll go by myself," she said, hoping she didn't sound as if she was wondering why there wasn't a single other person in her life she could have gone with. "Sorry," said Jess, "I know you hate driving. It's fine." It started to rain soon after Esther got inside the gates. She was in the middle of a crowd heading towards the main stage when they all got caught in it, and everyone had shrieked when it came down so suddenly that no one had time to get their rain jackets out. She was finishing a cup of coffee and planning a path from tree to tree to get back to the stage when she saw a group of people run over to shelter by a food stall. They were 3 girls her own age. All of them had bare shoulders and dirt on their legs, and they huddled together in a tight group hug, shivering. One of them said, "My fingers have literally gone numb," and another grabbed her friend's hands and clamped them between her own. Esther stood up and walked to the nearest row of portable toilets. She dried her eyes with handfuls of toilet paper. Sweating, Sophie found a park, then the correct entrance. Once inside, she stood for a while in the rain and looked around. Jess had been to music festivals before and would have known which acts to see, but Sophie wasn't sure. Coffins, she knew. On her drive that morning, she passed a hearse carrying the Christina model. Double-tiered printboard in a white finish with touches of gold and a cream satin interior. 2 ornate for her taste. Music was trickier. The low heartbeat of a reverberating bass line came thudding from a big stage to her left, so she moved towards it, thinking she might find some sheltered corner up the back in which to sit and listen. She was standing beside a shrub, trying to look like beside a shrub was where she wanted to be, when she heard someone say her name. She turned around and found Faye and Doug Fulham holding biodegradable cups of pink gin. They were friends of her parents. "Oh, hello," said Sophie. According to her dad, Faye and Doug gave dinner parties, at which one was always encouraged to notice something unusual about the wine. "Your folks in town too, then?" asked Doug. Sophie said that they weren't, because they'd had to go upriver for a funeral. "Business or pleasure?" said Doug, who had made that joke before. "Pleasure, I suppose," said Sophie. "It's Mum's cousin." Faye's mouth twitched. "Must be Barry." "It's Barry," confirmed Sophie, who had always wondered why nobody liked him. "Here by yourself?" asked Doug. Yeah," said Sophie. Doug said, "Oh, right." And after a moment, Faye said that Sophie would be very welcome to join them if she wanted to. Sophie said, "Thank you, but that's all right. I'm meeting a friend later." "Oh, lovely," said Faye. "Well, we're off to catch the jazz trio on the far stage. Stay dry." Sophie had a rain jacket, an old thin red one she'd borrowed from her mum, but by lunchtime she was cold. Once she'd got herself some food, she walked a bit further and found a barbecue pit in which a whole pig was being roasted. She stood watching it for a while and wondered if Barry had been cremated yet. When she started to feel too warm, she moved away to sit under a tree, still inside of the fire. As she ate her lunch and looked at all the people passing back and forth between her and the pig, she was glad she had come. She was starting to think that when the time came, she might be able to move to the city to study, meet some people who weren't dead or about to be, make a few friends, and then maybe do something other than inherit the funeral business. She sighed and stabbed at her food, thinking about the game of charades her family had played at Christmas once, when her dad had tried to act out embalming fluid. There were too many food stalls, and Esther couldn't decide. She'd walked the whole row and now stood between a barbecue place and a coffee van. She was thinking she might give up and try somewhere else instead, but it was warm near the fire, so she stood there for a minute and watched the pig being roasted. Other people were standing around too, warming their hands. On the far side of the fire, a girl a bit younger than Esther was sitting alone under a tree, wearing a red jacket, eating something out of a cardboard box. It looked like a good tree, a good place to sit. Esther imagined going over there, sitting down under the tree too, facing the fire. Maybe she and the girl would start to talk. They'd find out they had both come alone. Maybe they were planning to see the same show next. Maybe they'd walk there together. They could spend the whole day with each other, and they might even want to keep in contact. They could have lunch together sometimes, on weekends. All she had to do was walk over. Thank you.
2023 Writers Essay Program.
Oh, can I do this? Yes, okay, thank you so much. Thank you. My name's Jessica Ellis. I'm the CEO of Writers Essay. It's so wonderful to be here for this launch tonight. Before I tell you a little bit about our upcoming program, I just wanted to share how how closely I feel to Voiceworks. I love it deeply. I was a poetry editor of Voiceworks back in the day, 10 years ago, and then I aged out pretty quickly, sadly. At the time when I was on EdCom, the editor of Voiceworks was a guy called Johannes Jacob. He now is an editor at Penguin Random House, so we know that good things come out of Voiceworks. And after Yo-Yo finished his tenure, the next editor was a good friend of mine, Kat Muscat. And I don't know if you know, if you don't know Kat, you might recognise her name. So a little while after her tenure as editor, which was an amazing time, she very sadly passed away. And in a collaboration between her family and Express Media, we set up the Kat Muscat Fellowship, which is a national prize for young writers and editors. So if you've got a project brewing, you should apply for the fellowship because it's amazing. And I, even though it's been 10 years since I was on the editorial committee at Voiceworks, I'm still on the custodial committee of the fellowship that we run every year to honour the legacy of our friend. So I've always felt so close to Voiceworks because of that connection. So it's really special for me to be here, launching this edition with all of you. Really special. So it's the first time that we've, in my time at least, at Writers SA, that we've launched Voiceworks here in South Australia. We thought that we would mention while we're here some of the events that are coming up in our first quarter program for next year. Now, this program hasn't been released yet, so this is a sneak peek, exclusive for all of you here and tuning in. We'll be launching it on Monday, so you're getting the first word of it. There's a few things that are so secret that we can't announce, but the ones that I can tell you about, and particularly ones that you can access from anywhere, so if you're here in the room or if you're tuning in online, we have a range of amazing digital events. One of them is our incredible Teen Writers Circle, which is facilitated by an incredible person called Audrey Menz. We love them. So you can tune in. It's a space online where you can share ideas, share work, get to know other young writers. It's an incredible program. We've also got, for the poets among you, I'm also a poet, the incredible Jill Jones, one of South Australia's most celebrated poets, will be running an online intensive called Poetry Studio. Jill used to be senior lecturer in poetry at Adelaide University and now runs this program for us. So it's incredible. If you're a poet, check out Poetry Studio with Jill Jones. And if you write memoir, I encourage you to check out the Memoir Academy with Jenny Valentish. Jenny wrote one of my favourite memoirs from the last couple of years called Woman of Substances, and it's a memoir reportage about substance abuse and the gendered medicalisation of it. It's incredible. So if you want to learn about writing memoir from one of the best, check that out with Jenny Valentish. There's plenty more that you'll see. Take a look online on Monday night after we launch the program. You can tune in from anywhere. And I thought that I would mention before I jump down that this program that I've just been spruiking has come from the wonderful Alicia Herman. Yeah, round of applause for Alicia. Alicia, our soon-to-be outgoing statewide regional manager, really just wanted to shout out the incredible curation that she has put into this beautiful program. So thanks so much, Alicia. It rules. All right, that's it. Thank you so much. Check out Writers SA online, and Voiceworks, we love you. Thanks.
Our final reader for tonight from Grain is writer JSN. who will be reading from their short story, We Are the Tide. According to their bio, their likes include their cat Maple, solidarity, and listening to music. Please welcome JSN.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. This is the opening excerpt of We Are the Tide. When Avery Huang takes you by the hand, there's no helping it. You have to follow. At least, that's how Hassan has always found it. He can scrounge up enough self-awareness to admit he might be a special case, though. They've been traveling for a while now, long enough to lose the roads and the murky water. Still, with only cracked earth and greying shrubs to guide his way, Avery seems to know exactly where he's going. Hassan rarely ventures outside of the city. Nobody does, really, and he'd forgotten how exposing it is out here. There's nowhere to take refuge. Anyone who comes out finds himself at the mercies of the elements. After a while, Avery pauses and looks into the distance. The evening air bites with cold, the wind immediately curling around them as they stop, but Hassan can't help but smile. Avery's hand in his is warm, and it's the only shelter he needs. You still won't tell me where we're going? Hassan asks as they resume walking. When Avery looks back at Hassan, his expression smoothens into a smile almost instantly. Gratifying. He says, "Nope," and pops the pea. "I told you already. It's a surprise, son. I figure if you keep asking, you'll break eventually. If I keep asking." Avery snorts. "Then you don't know me very well at all." Hassan rolls his eyes and doesn't bother answering that. He leaves it to hang in the air, both of them aware that it's completely untrue. Hassan and Avery, Avery and Hassan. They know each other as well as any person can ever know another. The sun is setting in the distant west, its light clouded by the smog in the air. Everything around them is golden and quiet, and it feels like they're the only two people left in the world. The thought makes Hassan stop in place, but Avery squeezes his hand, encouraging him to keep moving. "Almost there," he whispers. Closing his eyes, Hassan focuses on the sound of Avery's steady footsteps, the rhythm of his breathing, the strength of his hand. When he looks again, the sun is low enough that it spills across Avery's features, illuminating him in gold. Lit up like a beacon, able to guide Hassan back to safety if he were ever lost. Avery is many things, but he's never been a liar. It only takes a few minutes, and then evidence that they're approaching their destination looms so quickly that it catches Hassan entirely off guard. The fence stands taller than Hassan and comes topped with spiraled barbed wire and a damning red sign. With nothing else around but the dead earth, the metal glinting in the sun looks unreal. An apparition. "Restricted area. Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted." "Surprise?" Avery offers. Hassan turns to glare at him. It loses some heat when he sees the sheepish grin on Avery's face, but he forges on, frowning. "Avery," he says, letting his hand drop, "where the hell are we?" Avery looks down at his empty hand and then back up at Hassan. "Well," he says, drawing out the word, "right now we aren't anywhere in particular. When we cross this fence, though, we'll be on the property of the esteemed Astor Company." "When we cross?" Hassan breathes in deeply, closes his eyes so that he can't see the ridiculous smile on Avery's face, and rewords his question. "And why would I want to illegally trespass onto the property of the esteemed Astor Company?" he asks, scrunching his nose at the exasperated fondness he can hear in his own voice. "All trespassing is illegal, San," Avery replies sagely. "Also because this particular property is special." Hassan opens his eyes and looks at Avery, crossing his arms. Avery makes his eyebrows do a little dance, further trying to tempt Hassan. After an elongated pause, Hassan sighs and asks, "What makes it so special?" Avery grins at him, slow and indulgent. Hassan's face wants to twitch into a smile in response, but he firmly shuts down that impulse. "Well, dearest Hassan," Avery says, "let me tell you why. This property has a beach on it." Hassan takes the moment to locate the word in his mind. A beach. He summons images of yellow and white and blue, hazy like a dream, and furrows his brow. You want to risk arrest for a beach, he states. Avery rolls his eyes. I'd risk arrest for a corn chip. The law is meaningless, he replies. True on both counts, Hassan must admit. It's the beach, son, not just sand and seawater. He gestures his arms vaguely. The whole concept, the experience, the ocean. Aren't you curious? Avery, Hassan responds, somewhat concerned. We live on the ocean. Not a very nice one, Avery replies. Hassan sighs. Yeah, so wouldn't you rather, I don't know, get away from it at this point? Avery rolls his eyes again, the motion bigger and more exasperated. I'm talking about an actual beach, Hassan. Not what we see every day, with dirt and rocks and oil everywhere and stilt buildings sticking out of the water, but a real beach. He bites his lip, suddenly quiet. Like in the pictures and the stories, you know? Hassan goes to argue and then stops, because he does know. Sun, sand, and sea. He was born too late to witness any of it himself, but he's seen the movies and read the books and heard the tales. It's one of those things slowly eroded with time that nobody seems to be able to let go of. Hassan has been mostly content to live with what he's got, but Avery's never been like that. Avery has always wanted more, better. In the end, it's simple. Avery puts out his hand and Hassan takes it. Rough and calloused as it is, it's still the gentlest touch that Hassan has ever felt. His eyes sliding shut, Hassan says, if we get caught, I'm telling them you forced me at gunpoint. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JSN. That was a beautiful collection of words. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the No Limits program that Alicia mentioned earlier. I was at 2 of the events that were part of that program, Hina Feast and Rye Day. They were both amazing experiences to meet fellow writers and bounce ideas off of each other. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Now please welcome back Alicia to the stage.
Are both of the mics just always live? Yes, okay. We did it. We launched Grain. Woo! I just want to give you some announcements and some information, actually, because that's the whole thing about making our conversation louder, right? And making sure that young writers, wherever they are, get to have all of these same opportunities that we're talking about. They get to tell their stories. Means that we need to all take responsibility for sharing it with someone that needs to know about it. So just a couple of things that I want to share with you to share with young writers in your networks. Some of these are relevant to regional writers and some of them are relevant to everybody. One of them is please tune in this Sunday via the Writers Essay YouTube. We are having an online teen writers showcase, so the program that Jess mentioned before, which Audrey has been looking after. We've had young teen writers from across regional South Australia meeting every single Sunday during the term, working on their own stories, and some of those writers are going to be sharing their stories in a little celebration to close out the year. So please tune in for that, free, just on our YouTube, starting at 6 o'clock on Sunday. Show up to support them because they'll be, looking to see who's watching. And it is really lovely to know that we have those supportive audiences for whatever we're doing. My phone just went thing, I have to code it, yep. I'm a really professional person, as you can tell. And I think it's... Oh, Zoe, by the way, I sold 2 more Voiceworks editions. I have money for you. Yeah, we've just got to be on the hustle, right? No, seriously. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that next year here in the Chaffey Theatre in March, we're going to be presenting counter-urban questions as part of the Adelaide Fringe, and that's going to be one of the kind of a legacy event from the No Limits program. So we've commissioned 10 somewhere in that vicinity, young regional riders from right across South Australia, from Port Lincoln, right here in the Riverland and Mount Gambier, and they're all going to be gathering here in person on stage at the Chaffey Theatre in March to read those new pieces of work. So please come along in person if you can. We'll also be live streaming that event as well. So come along and support them. If you are in the Riverland tomorrow, some of the Riders SA team, so myself, Kirsty, who's been our Riverland coordinator this year, Eliza, who's been our not Limestone Coast, there's too many coasts, our Eyre Peninsula coordinator this year, also Jess, our CEO, Roman, our operations manager, and Lana, our marketing coordinator. We're going to be gathering at Part of Things in Barmera in Horden Chambers to have a bit of a chat at 10 o'clock around what regional riders, particularly those in the Riverland, want and need. Because Riders SA's name is Riders SA, not Riders Adelaide. And so that conversation about what we need, how we can work together, and how we can keep supporting one another is really, really important. So if you want to come and be part of that conversation, if you're in the Riverland, you might be tuning in from home or you might be here tonight, just come and drop in. We'll be there from 10 for a couple of hours. The other thing I really wanted to mention to you, and this goes back to that conversation around how can we be what we can't see, particularly for those of us in the room who are perhaps salaried or a little bit older, I'd really like to encourage you to jump on the Express Media website and buy a Pass It On subscription for Voiceworks. So when you are an emerging writer, and sometimes just as a young person in general, unfortunately we live in a society where often young people get the casual shitty jobs where they're underpaid and exploited, and so it can be really hard to justify the purchase of something like Voiceworks. And that's something that we can do as the salaried adults in the room, is we can buy a Pass It On subscription and make sure that goes to a young person that really wants and needs it. So that's a call to action for all of us in the room. Also, grab another copy on your way out from Zoe. That's what we're here to do. We're here to launch Voiceworks. You can also, through the Voiceworks and Express Media websites, buy back issues of the magazine as well, so you can go and explore some of those beautiful other writers who are now working in the field in all kinds of ways, and some of those things that Jess mentioned before. The thing about these kinds of events, about organisations like Riders SA and about Voiceworks, is that legacy, right, over time, and we're all part of that. So go and get a copy. Last of all, I just wanted to say you are all fabulous and superb and amazing, but I especially just wanted to point out how fabulous and superb and amazing Zoe and Cecile are. Zoe spent 10 hours in a bus yesterday to be here, and then has been in the car all day with me, listening to me give her the rundown of like everywhere I was born, where I lived when I was 5, as we drove from Adelaide to the Riverland. So absolute champion. Zoe's obviously been the editor this year of Voiceworks and has worked so hard to bring all of this together and to launch this edition. Cecile likewise has spent all day in the car with me, listening to me talk about things and, oh, my dad was born there and blah, blah, blah. So, just points for perseverance. Cecile does all of the beautiful work, like designing the magazine and making sure that it looks so beautiful. It's such a beautiful object just to hold in your hands. So do grab a copy as you leave. That's what we're here to do. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our amazing MCs, Devon and Ro, who've been part of quite a few No Limits projects. And I'm gonna eat my hat if I was wearing it if one or both of those people are not published in Voiceworks in the next couple of years, because talent in this corner. And can we just have a final round of applause for all of the readers and all the contributors to Voiceworks? Beautiful, thank you. Woo! You're also polite, guys, come on. All right, actually no. I need both hands for this. Okay, so this is we're gonna do a final, I'm a theatre kid, right? I started my creative career through Riverland Youth Theatre just down the road. And our current creative producer, Fleur, is in the audience and is an award-winning playwright. So, claps for that. Let's do it. So to give our final round of applause. So this is, we're just here in a conversation. We've been hanging out in our beautiful, beautiful Chaffey Theatre lounge room, celebrating stories and writers and what it means to come together and be part of a community. So our final little clap is going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Participatory. It's been a long year. What I would like us to do is we're just going to do some gentle little ones. We're just, all of us, some gentle little ones. We're starting to hear maybe there's a bit of a rainstorm coming, and then we're going to get a little bit, oh yeah. Okay, the rain's starting to come down now. Okay, on the tin roof. Okay, and there's some thunderclaps. Beautiful, thank you.
stole our line, Alicia.
Which one? All of them.
All of them. We're going to do it again because that's what we wrote.
Okay. That is all we have for tonight. Thank you to
Everyone for joining us.
to all of our writers, performers and contributors,
Anyone who travelled to the Riverland.
or from Loxton.
And thank you to Writers SA,
Voiceworks,
Express Media,
the Restart Investment to Sustain and Expand Fund, or the RISE Fund, an Australian initiative,
Art South Australia,
the Chaffey Theatre,
Tone Pit Media,
and our Auslan interpreter.
Don't forget to grab a copy or a few copies of Voiceworks as you leave tonight, but of course Alicia already reminded you of that.
We'll welcome Bianca back to the stage for a final performance.
My legs really hurt from the gym, so I'm sorry that took so long to walk up. It's been 3 days since I hit legs, and it's still like, ugh. I'd also just like to give a shout out. My music teacher from year 8 to 12 is here, and I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, Baldy. And yeah, Mel. Right, so yeah, as these guys said, I've got one last song for you tonight. It's called Rose-Coloured Glasses. And yeah, it's about actually someone who lives in Renmark, which I think is kind of funny. But it sort of came from her sending me a Snapchat about my eyes. And it was just like this so artistically worded. I was like, whoa, like what? And then, yeah, so here's Rose-Coloured Glasses. You might find this on Spotify or something next year. Quick snap, infatuation. Darling, you've got my concentration. Drifting thoughts will turn to you. So what the hell am I supposed to do? Toxic rumors circulating. It seemed like everyone was hating. Had to get to know you better, but I don't know if I wanna write love letters. You swept me off my feet, had me shaking in my seat. I'm at a loss for words when I talk to you. These rose-colored glasses make everything seem like you're the best one in the world, but are you good for me? Keep running into you around town. You really know how to get rid of my frown. Never felt like this before. Babe, you've got me wanting more. The way you said you liked my eyes, that really took me by surprise. Feel like I'm
off my feet, had me shaking in my seat. I'm at a loss for words when I talk to you. These rose-colored glasses make everything seem like you're the best one in the world, but are you good for me? These rose-colored glasses make everything seem like you're the best one in the world, but are you good for me? Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you should all give yourselves another round of applause, because tonight was wonderful. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your evening.